Cesar Chavez, his fight for farm workers. Inside the old gas station, Cesar Chavez lay fasting as he had for 20 days. It was 1968. Outside, migrant workers stood keeping watch over their leader. Many of these workers had brought gifts to give Chavez luck. Others had painted the windows with brightly colored designs to make them look like stained glass. One television reporter said the site was like a shrine to nonviolence at which the followers of Cesar Chavez had come to worship. Each day, Chavez's wife and children came to see him and check his health. At first, Chavez thought only of food, but gradually he no longer dreamed of eating. He grew thin and weak, yet his mind remained clear. As head of the National Farm Workers, he continued to hold meetings, sign papers, and plan. Chavez hoped that his fast would help the cause, Lucasa. He fasted because of his commitment to farm workers and to his belief that they should have higher wages and decent working conditions. He believed workers deserved housing, health care benefits, and a life without violence. He wanted to show people that nonviolence took courage. He wanted to convince farmer workers that they could achieve their demands without violence. 25 days after beginning, Chavez ended his fast, having won respect for his peaceful methods. In 1927, Cesar Chavez was born near Yuma, Arizona, on his family's farm. His grandfather had come there from Mexico in the 1880s. He and his family lived there until Chavez was 10 years old, growing fruits and vegetables. They lost their land during the Depression and headed for California to join the thousands of other migrant farm workers. Chavez traveled up and down the state following the crops and working in the fields. Moving often, Chavez and his 5 brothers and sisters and his parents labored long hours under the hot sun. They barely earned enough money to get by. Sometimes they slept in their car or in the fields. Sometimes they slept in tumble-down shacks provided by the farmers. Always, they hoped for a better life. By the time Chavez had finished 8th grade, he had gone to more than 30 schools and had picked crops throughout California. His experience had taught him that farm workers receive little justice or respect. Cesar Chavez began talking with fellow pickers, trying to get them to join in demanding improvements. Most of the workers were afraid. Some were illegal immigrants from Mexico who were afraid of being sent back to Mexico. Others spoke little English and knew the farm owners had the power on their side. The chance for Chavez to do something came in 1951. Fred Ross, an organizer for the Community Service Organization, CSO, a private group helping migrants, came to see him. Ross asked Chavez if he wanted to work with the CSO to register migrants to vote. Ross said that voting could give migrant workers power. Chavez, just 24 and shy and unsure of his abilities, agreed to help. All day he picked apricots, and at night he registered voters and organized classes in English. Within 2 months, he had registered more than 4,000 workers. When his boss found out, he fired Chavez. The CSO then hired him and gave him a steady income. He studied labor laws and led meetings of his fellow migrants. The migrants listened to him. Most trusted him, for he was one of them, but they feared the landowners and the loss of their jobs. After 9 years, Chavez believed farm workers needed to form a union to demand decent wages and working conditions. The CSO disagreed. Chavez quit the CSO and, using his own savings to live on, he started the National Farm Workers Association. This organization, founded by Chavez, was later called the United Farm Workers of America. In 1964, the association took a farmer to court for paying less than minimum wage. The court found the farmer guilty and forced him to pay the minimum wage. The first victory in the fields came in May 1965. A nursery where plants are grown for gardens offered one wage to workers at the beginning of the week, but less at the week's end. When the workers asked Chavez for help, he convinced them to go out on strike. After a 4-day strike, the nursery owners gave in to the workers' demands. Chavez hoped one day to have enough members to make all growers pay decent wages, but he feared that would take years. In the summer of 1965, some grape pickers went out on strike against the grape growers. They asked Chavez to join them, but he felt that his group was not ready. At a meeting on September 15th, the group's 2,000 members disagreed, shouting, "Huelga, huelga, strike, strike." They quit picking grapes and picketed the vineyards, warning others not to work until the grape growers recognized their right to a union and fair pay. After a few weeks, 2 vineyards agreed. The workers returned to those vineyards. Other growers still refused. Chavez realized he had to find new ways to oppose the powerful growers. Chavez decided to organize a boycott, asking people to not buy or sell grapes. In November, he called for a nationwide boycott. The following spring, he led a 300-mile march through California's farmland to the state capital, Sacramento. People all over the nation heard about the migrants' problems. Students, nuns, lawyers, doctors, and ministers came to help. Others sent money, food, and clothing for the strikers. As people boycotted grapes, more growers signed contracts with the workers. At some vineyards, migrants resorted to violence to make their point. Chavez disagreed with this tactic, preferring instead the nonviolent means. After much thought and prayer, he began his fast, which stopped most of the violence among his followers. By 1970, most vineyards were paying fair wages, and the grape boycott ended. In the years since, Chavez presided over many victories and defeats and continued to lead farm workers, using fasts, strikes, marches, and boycotts to dramatize their plight. Although changes came slowly, Cesar Chavez continued to support nonviolence and to dream. He said, "Our struggle is not easy. We are poor, but we have our bodies and spirits and the justice of our cause as our weapons."